Rite of Passage is back and it is better than ever. Starting February 16th this year, you'll get to enter to try and get your chance to make XGS. With just a $50 entry fee, you get direct invite to our round robin stage where it is best of threes for every game, making sure every single chance, every game, every round has the most meaning possible. The best teams in the round robin group stage will make it on to our single elimination playoffs, where they can fight for not only a chance for the lion's share of a $1,000 plus grand prize, but also a chance, a direct invite to the next season of XGS. Signups close February 13th, just 3 days before the event actually starts, so make sure you gather your teammates, friends, and sign up, because this is your chance to make a name in the scene. Are you ready? Find out here.
After a little quick intro there, how you feeling, Chuck? We got ourselves a couple of games, obviously. You know, been a second cast now. How are we doing?
I'm doing okay. It's another day in XGS Season 8. I'm wanting to look at the standings just for the day before we introduce our matches, just so we can kind of contextualize everything that's going on in the league and kind of update you on some of the teams in XGS Season 8. Specifically, there is a team missing. NDK have been officially disqualified from XGS Season 8. I won't get into specifics, but if you know, then you know. But these are our current 7 teams in the league. LFO make up the bottom of the league with the worst round diff, which is very surprising. That'll be our second game of today. Unity and Karn & Co., that's going to be our first. They're both sitting towards the top of the table. Karn & Co. is stuck at a two-way tie for second place based on three-way tie based on points, but because they're tied on round diff with Ball Sec Nation, they both share that second place spot. It's been a solid start to the season for Unity specifically, who look like one of the stronger teams so far.
Yeah, and just quickly to end that NDK point off, all those games are officially voided, so that'll at least be something to remember going long on to this. And more importantly, this is probably one of the best games we'll see in a bit. Your 1 seed versus the 2 seed. Your 2 champions going against each other. I mean, you can't get much better than that.
Yeah, champions is like a way to put it, because like they haven't really won anything in T3 so far. I mean, Karn & Co. have won Element 2 once upon a time ago, but that was a completely new roster. Now they've kind of like rebranded themselves. And I think for Karn & Co., they've kind of been finding themselves on a steady slope of improvement, especially after losing Eli, after I believe it was SI quals, and then adding Toaster into the team. That kind of like gives them another player sort of like Eli, who's kind of like that mailbox flex player. Zonky has been a solid piece for his team, and even though we don't really have stats to show it, I can guarantee you that Raid comes into Season 8, or in this game at least, as Karn & Co.'s highest rated player. He has a lot of hype around his name, and for good reason. He's really good mechanically, he has really good aim, and he's always finding himself in spots where he can get really solid multi-kills for Karn & Co.
Yeah, I mean, his entry numbers have been ridiculous to start off the season, and it's going to be a tough matchup. I mean, this team feels so refined. It feels like you have the perfect IGL, really, as Carnage comes in with the experience of a veteran who can maybe cover up some blind spots of Raid Bullies, since he's newer maybe to this PC game. But you have that perfect duo in his case to, I think, really help him adjust and help him succeed every single round.
Yeah, and Raid and DD kind of make up the entry duo. They're both entry players. DD, I think, is a little bit more aggressive than Raid. He can surely take more engagements than him. And DD also plays Shields. Specifically, he plays Blackbeard and Blitz. He loves the Blitz. And DD has a ton of experience within T2. A lot of people don't really talk about Zonky, but he also is statistically very good for them in Element 6. And I just think this is a really solid roster. And if what we've gotten from the beginning of this season, or even during SI quals, is anything to go by, and even some parts of Element 6, Karn & Co. may come back to their usual self. But I would like to look at Unity too, because that's their opponent for today. And Unity has also been one of the better teams. They were one of the best teams in close quals, going 3-0. If you're wondering why Kool-Aid's here, he's actually subbing in for Unity. I think he's subbing in for, I can't remember. Either way, he is going to be subbing in for Unity. for now, and that just kind of makes up their roster. I think Unity has been such a solid team this season, and they've been just so well balanced. There's not really a certain standout. Maybe Big Band's Hat, who's also playing today for Unity, but no, this team doesn't really have anybody who really stands out to me. They're all just so incredibly solid.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a roster of superstars, as you mentioned. You can't really go wrong because it feels like whenever we watch, there's always someone new really topping the leaderboard in the numbers. We've seen it from Key Red Points. We've seen it from BJL. Vic Bands has had some of the greatest clutches so far in XGS, at least in this season. Wherever you look, it feels, once again, as you mentioned, there's not really a weak point to look for. It feels like wherever you look, there's always a chance for a playoff move. There's always this chance for a big play.
And actually, just to update, Kool-Aid was subbing in, is subbing in for Reppers. You mentioned that. So yeah, apologies for that. I couldn't remember who for the life of me he was subbing in for, but we get into our map bans, and nothing off rip surprises me. Fortress and Lair being Karn & Co.'s most banned maps this year so far, from SI LCQs till now. Lair and Fortress are maps that Karn & Co. have never played. They don't like playing it. They will look to ban it out consistently. Border is also not a map that Karn & Co. has played so far this season, and it's up there with some of their most banned maps. The surprising thing to me, and I'm kind of surprised that we're going to Cafe just because Labs was the last ban, Unity have not played Cafe this year. It's also one of their most banned maps alongside, I believe, is their perma ban, so kind of surprised to see Cafe there. And also, I'm kind of surprised that Chalet was banned by Karn & Co., so Cafe was not a map that I expected us to go to. But I think it's a good sign for Karn & Co. because statistically this year they have been pretty solid at it. They have a positive win rate.
Yeah, and I think that maybe one of the reasons we saw Chalet go away was simply just after that Unity game. I mean, a 5-1 attacking half from them, I can get why. You know, there's certainly a bit of a spook there when you see a team go so dominant on a map that can be attacker-sided at points, sure, but 5-1 was so insane to see. And I'm not surprised, honestly. I think Karn & Co., they'd rather just take the safe bet, get it out of their way when they know how strong they just looked just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and I also think maybe playstyle-wise, Karn & Co. would prefer to go in a Cafe compared to a Chalet. Unity, yes, it was a 5-1 half, but we have to also think about, like, why did it look so scary for Unity? And it was just because of their willingness to exploit gaps from the LFO side and just keep running at, like, maybe some of the weaker anchors on the LFO team. And even just like send players by themselves and just kind of like confuse LFO a lot of the times with their attacks on Chalet. Maybe that's a scary sight for Karn & Co. to interact with on Chalet compared to Cafe, where maybe you can gap spot on Cafe, but it's surely not as scary as like playing defense on Chalet, for example.
Yeah, and I personally want to get this. I love getting the opinions of people. I personally am going to have Karn & Co. winning. I just feel like they're so refined, even after a really good Chalet. Do you have any predictions going into this one? Or you may be a little bit unsure? Or do you have any like big players you think are going to step up?
I'm pretty unsure. I kind of always expect a good game from Raid. I think he always is willing to be very entertaining to watch. I don't know how detrimental that sub situation is, and it usually, every time there is like a sub in T3 games, I always struggle to like think if it's gonna impact a team in a negative way. You would think it does, because like you're subbing in a new player for somebody that maybe you regularly like, scrim with or whatever. But for me, whenever I've watched T3 and whenever I've seen a sub come in, sometimes they slot in spots where it's natural for them and it doesn't really impact the team that's playing. You know, these teams in T3 tend to be puck stacks most of the time. So slotting in a sub into their team doesn't really affect them at all, and maybe doesn't even affect the way that they play. It's not like Kool-Aid needs a ton of resources either. So this one is very hard for me to call. I think I'll also go for a Karn & Co. win. I think they've looked solid more recently. They didn't have like the best runs in SI LCQs, but they did take a map off of... Was it OXG? They took a map off of OXG and JJ & Co. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So they at least showing those flashes, as you mentioned. And it's a good point. Obviously, is that sub. I think that in this case, I'm not super worried. I think we've seen the core of Vic Bands, of Kiro, of Happy. It feels like the team around him is so well built right now. I think the role he's going to come into isn't necessarily the largest in terms of what they need. And I think the expectation for him is already pretty average around the block, but I truly think he has a chance to succeed because of how good the support group is around him.
Yeah. If you're wondering why we're still yapping and why you're just seeing Cafe in the background over and over again, okay, no, we're in the game. At first, we were waiting for for Carnage B to join the lobby. Now he's joined and we can get right into Cafe, starting off with the ban phase. No real surprise to see both Grim and Mira off of the board early. Mira can be really good for like top floor setups, even when you're playing reading and dining, for example. She's really good for holding up top floor and just wasting a lot of the attacker's resources. And Grim and Capital together as a ban on Cafe, they're good execute operators. Cafe is an execute heavy map. These are operators that favor this map. So I'm not surprised to see Karn and Co ban them.
Yeah, and going into this, so far, it looks like the defense has been pretty typical. I'm not a big surprise in terms of what you see. You expect Carnage on the SAS operator there. In the second floor has become their primary first choice of site. And I really do enjoy it. I feel like giving the more hard support play of Carnage that shotgun and C4, it's done wonders for the group. It feels like he's been able to hold these corners much better. Obviously, rotations and a verticality, but it does bring a nice advantage to the group.
Okay. All right. I'm not gonna mention it, but all right, it's fine. It's all right. But yeah, Cardico's starting off with a defense. They're gonna be on reading and dining, like you mentioned. It's not a setup that kind of like, I don't know what's the word, like surprises you or knocks your socks off if you want to get like really goofy with it. This is a setup that I've seen Karn and Co do before. On Cafe. I think when I was like watching their game, funnily enough, against the team that got like eliminated from XGS season 8 and NDK, they played Cafe as well. I remember seeing Raid specifically in the first round go like off with the 3K over by Cigar Shop. But whether or not Unity start their top four take, and they will have to take top four if they plan to do like a normal execute, they are going to start their top four take by going red side over. So yeah, they will have to interact with Raid at some point.
All right, yeah, it'll have to be something to worry. The dude's been crazy. It feels like whenever we cast him, it feels like the man is just built for the bright lights, and he's up to it so far. But he's on Unity's side. They're moving a little bit slower. They're getting, I think, just a very traditional take to push the bounds. They don't want to get super aggressive early on here. I will say I do like the pick of Kool-Aid taking that Nomad link on the board, lock down those steroids because it can certainly be a high traffic area. And when a team like Karn & Co can roam so much.
Also notice that like Unity, they're doing this top four take. I'm assuming that they got all of the information that they need, but they're only just down to one drone currently at the start of this round. They're only a minute and 40 in, a minute off the clock, as Karn and Co haven't really aggressively engaged in any fights. I mean, Raid can't really engage in anything on Whitehall just because there's somebody on his White Stairs window cut off. So at the moment, Unity are trying to find a first pick, but it's not really going too well. Karn and Co are doing such a good job of just delaying time on his top floor take.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big issue here is time. Raid, however, will finally fall down. There's still Toaster, who opts to also fall down. It seems that they're perfectly fine with the delay they had on the board. Just a minute, and you're already seeing great plays from the group. More importantly, the time is going to be such an issue here for the group Unity. They're really going to have to try to push the pen, find a crazy pick, and I think risk it.
Yeah, at the moment, Unity have what they kind of need. The only real issue is if, well, they can't avoid the Nitro Cells, which has already been going out here for Zonky. He gets a kill onto Hat with a follow-up from Deity. There's been no mid-round aggression so far from Karn & Co, but they don't really need it. They're just holding on to some of the outside angles, covering bottom red stairs, and then getting a kill with the Nitro Cell too. Raid has also found a follow-up. At the moment, Unity have no clear way of entering site.
Yeah, you're going to need something big from Kool-Aid. A cross being held, damaged, but not quite the pick. Vic Pan's still alive, so there's at least some level of superstar potential here, but the reality is going to be so hard to get this done. A plant will go down, but it's not going to be even really possible with C4s, with Raid coming in. Carnage will finish. Madness ensued, but more importantly, it was a stellar roam from the group of Karn & Co there.
Yep, Karn & Co played off of their main win condition. They kind of did this the last time that they played NDK on Cafe in the very first round, where they looked to waste time up top with the Goyos and the Fenrir up top playing in a cocktail bar or cocktail lounge rather, and they used Goyo cans on Whitehall to waste time so that like Unity couldn't like push down the hallway and look to pinch the Stacks player, which was Raid. They dropped off without losing a body, and when they dropped off, they used Nitro Cells to find the opening pick and just cause a lot of havoc. They covered bottom red stairs so that alert opportunity couldn't be found for Unity. Lurks were so powerful for Unity against LFO on Chalet, so to see that shut down from Karn is a positive sign on their way to looking for success in this game.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the best method there to, really get yourself an advantage is to prevent the other team from finding an advantage themselves. So a little bit of protective gameplay there, staying smart, playing a clean game so far. I think the most important is there wasn't really a great point there for Karn to fail. It felt like they were playing so well in terms of the timing, in terms of the roam. It was really hard for Unity, obviously, because they're so used to maybe taking some advantages, finding those gaps and, exploiting. That felt like a very perfect play in terms of like, that was how it was designed in the playbook. You couldn't get better.
Obviously, now it's going to be back to the drawing board for Unity. Attack this time, they're attacking onto the first floor. And there's really no room up top. This is pretty normal for a service and cooking site hold. Usually you want to hold.
Oh. Excuse me, did I lose you there? No? Either way, Karn and Co. gonna slowly get their jobs done. More importantly, this time it's hopefully like a little bit better on the drone economy. At least 2 drones alive, which I suppose is the slight improvement you need. It's now just about droning slow, playing it smart and safe. I think, once again, Karn and Co. did the exact same thing. We saw how they played this very efficient game in round 1, and it's how can you counter that? How can you really try to derail the defense here for Karn and Co.? Excuse me, it seems like we have a handful of issues, but don't worry, I'll be able to take over. We got ourselves, hopefully, a bit of a well-done verticality being held by Hack. He'll be the main one to watch for, obviously trying to derail, once again, as I mentioned, the Karn & Co defense. They need to find a way to get these picks, get some more issues, and make Karn & Co improvise here, because Carnage so far held a really efficient game. They need to find a way to get into that. So for nades, Kool-Aid coming in with his flank play, or excuse me, his nade play. Everyone's kind of waiting for their moment. They're waiting for the prime time. Kiru will take advantage. First, his AK will find the body of Toaster. Edie as well, getting a trade back. Vic bans a nice reward, a nice counter, if you will. Kiru still slowly lurks his way up. The fact of the matter is, there's so much he has to do here. If he can control this hallway, the advantage that can be taken for Unity is huge, but the fact of the matter is, time is going to be the factor. BJL at least gets Zonky. Now, plan comes down, but still a play could be made. There's 2 C4s board, Carnage or Raid. Both could do it, but it seems Raid is unaware. That means a plant's coming right back down in a much harder situation for Karn & Co. now. Once again, a little bit better on the drawing board there. I felt like that pre-round and mid-round was much better executed from the group, but Deity and Raid continue to go big. You're 1-2, 1B mans. Entries, and everyone's going nuts so far, but they still have 2 more bodies to find. One of them is certainly sitting on the verticality, so this is going to be a harder one to fight. Raid's going to realistically either have to take a very, very beautiful C4, or he's going to have to rely on a little bit of overplaying, maybe from the group of Unity. But at a point like this, with so little time on the board, at least seeming to be 1 round there for Unity, and a very, very important comeback.
Spoiler alert, sorry about that. My whole computer just like froze. That was like really odd. So I just missed that whole round. And I was gonna make a point like how like Karn & Co are like holding the site with more for like service and cooking. But in turn, they're also like giving up Vert, and maybe playing for bakeries just gonna be slightly weaker because they're not playing in mining. So I'm not too sure if that's what happened there, but it's a round win for Unity. That means the game is close from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, at least in my opinion, I think a lot of that was verticality based. It applied a lot more pressure, I think, than was expected from Karn and Co. I think they really didn't expect that much vertical presence. And it really did cause some issues. I also think those stairs maybe weren't as regulated as you'd wish. That could be some issues you address, obviously, going into these next couple of rounds. You likely won't see first floor in the rotation for a little bit, as you have quite a few really good sites for Karn and Co. to go around with. But it's a round that I think that even if you lost, there's still a highlight to be shown there for Karn and Co. Yes, but Raid and DD continue to show why they are absolutely one of the best entry groups we've seen in a decade.
10 seconds to go.
Yeah, and I think another point to make about the Karnico roster, if we're not just going to talk about Raid the whole entire time, is also talk about DD. DD can be kind of like inconsistent for Karnico, or even just in any team that he's played on. Even when he was playing with JJ's team, JJ and Co. or Fluffy Gamers, he had some issues with like consistency. And I think on Karnico more recently, he's been finding consistency, and I really like that, because I think in terms of like anybody who kind of like deserves a shout in T2, it's there's a bunch of players, but DD is going to be one of them. And he's like super fun to watch because he's like super aggressive all the time. His aim is like always like really sharp. And I don't know, I just like watching DD a lot, and so I'm kind of happy that he's found some consistency here on Karnico, because that was also a big issue for them when he first joined.
Yeah, we'll certainly see how that lays out. But at least consistency, a lot of that comes off of the more veteran play that can be given from Karn. One of the oldest pros in terms of T2, R6, and all of R6, and that certainly has its uses here. And as I was mentioning, and as I was going on my point there, Kiru finds about as mentally chalking pick as he could try to be, shooting the body about as much as you can. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can get the mental chalk, it might not be the greatest method, but it could very well be a good stop.
Yeah, and that's also kind of like a thing with Raid as well. He does play a lot of like solo Karnico, so I don't want to seem like I'm being like negative on him, but like now you've just kind of like lost your red stairs player, and you kind of lost one of your aggressive pieces early. So in terms of like any mid-round powering or aggression, I think Karnico is going to be left a little bit weaker for it, because nobody else apart from DD or Raid is really that aggressive on this team. So when you're trying to like retake Vert, when Unity are setting themselves up for a mining plant, I don't know, now you're just going to be left a lot weaker from it.
Yeah, and you see the flashes go wide for Vic Bands. He's searching for the pick with the new DMR instead of the more recently buffed AR. That Hat will find bodies. Make that 2 for him. Unity getting the momentum rolling back in their direction. The plant going down. Zonky can do all he wants, but all for naught as a flawless round in the Kool-Aid pick. Sub does come up.
Yeah, and I think a big issue that we're seeing so far from Karnico, this is something that they do a lot. They play like really passive setups where sometimes you have individual entry players like DD or Raid just play like solo by themselves aggressively. They really have like no backup or they're not like fighting for map control. And I think for a cafe, you cannot like afford to just give up map control or have like no mid-round aggression. And we kind of need to see more of that for Karnico. If they're going to go for aggressive plays, you need to have like a plan to do it together, or go just for like have a plan to do any type of mid-round aggression so that Unity just don't walk all over you. Because this is something that they did against LFO Chalet. They got map control for free, they gap spotted, and they abused gaps that they spotted against LFO on Chalet. And on Cafe, it's not going to be as bad, but it can get pretty nasty if you're like not too careful.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring up real quickly. You made a great point there. I think earlier on when you're saying Raid was going on, felt like more of a solo play, which obviously, as you mentioned, could be a very, very specific play from Karn. He trusts the aggression of Raid, trusts the mechanical skill and the sense he has, and that could be something that works normally. However, as you mentioned, it feels like the Unity has been very, very good at identifying those weak links, identifying spots where they can take advantage of its map control, an isolated pick, and we maybe could find long-term. Raid's big plan there, being that solo guy and kind of running off and being his own army, essentially, work here, because Unity could very well commit hard to forcing him to play group, forcing him to play a little more passive than he's used to doing in that solo Raid, just because they're going to continue to try to capitalize on him.
Yeah, and Didi can be kind of like the same person too. It's kind of weird, but like Didi and Braid make up like the entry players on this team, or make up the entry positions on this team. And rarely do I ever see them really playing with each other on defensive setups. So I don't know. I don't know the setups for Karn and Co. I don't know like how effective they see it to be. It's just something that I notice and something that can be easily abused here against Unity, who aren't afraid to take ones against you. And most of the time they will win it. They are pretty good in terms of like entry engagements and how consistently they're able to actually win it.
Yeah, and I mean, it could maybe just come back to a straight, a 1v1 gunfight for a lot of these, as you mentioned. Unity isn't going to be scared to take the fights. They trust themselves. They trust that they have, and more importantly, trust to get the entry pick on the board and then immediately traded out by a C4. I will say Carnage on the down doesn't leave it for the greatest position there on the second floor, so a little bit more resible, but already a lot of the third floor pressure being essentially controlled could be an issue with an 8 coming in. Maybe even getting the down on the Carnage, but not quite the finishes. He'll at least stay alive, and he stabilized to a 3v3.
Yeah, Hat has established his position over by the second floor, so he's put himself in a cutoff to like catch anybody that's trying to fall off back to site safely. And that was a luxury that was afforded to Karn and Co in the first round. Not so much here. Unity know what they're playing up against. And they also have Vert this time against Karn and Co, who kind of seem like maybe in the mid round right now. They don't really know where the attack is fully coming from, which is totally fine, but they seemingly have an idea. They're trying to cover Whitehall, but like what's going to happen if somebody jumps pillar and they have to cover that? They may just have to power this guy together that's planting.
Deathmark tracker out.
Yeah, and they at least have a even game to do so far, but Kool-Aid makes it uneven there. The sub, at least a much better run than expected here. He's outperforming himself, really showing what he can do. Had as well, leaving Raid now in the 1v3. A lot of pressure for one of the newer pickups here, but he's certainly shown up at times. I mean, he's had some of the best games we've seen in XGS so far, so he's going to need another big one, but a Deimos track isn't going to help here. All about playing this perfectly, all about taking these 1v1 fights. The split second you do have them. He gets rid of Hat, gets something on the board, but the Deimos is going to be the issue, as well as Kool-Aid, who finishes it. More importantly, the sub has been going pretty insane so far. I think really relying on his team to handle a lot of the harder work. He's been able to just kind of find these picks and, continue to just take those easy fights. And at the end of the day, he's getting those ones.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm talking about with Kool-Aid. At least you know what you're going to get from him, and he doesn't really require a ton of resources in order to be activated. He's a really solid piece for really any T3 team or T2 team, and he also has that experience of playing in Pro League back with Parabellum and a long time ago when NAL used to have a LAN stage. Yeah, in the end of that round or towards the end of it, like when I was talking about like, oh, Unity are setting themselves up for a reading plant, and you might have a guy planting on bookcase, but like there was also a guy already in pillar 2. Karn peaked, I believe, from Laundry already dying to the pillar player, and that leaves Raid in such a difficult spot because like now you don't really have any cover towards your white or your bottom white stairs. You have to like worry about any push that's coming in from the mining side. That was where Hat was, and now you also have to worry about a guy in pillar while also worrying about a plant. So it's like you have so many things to worry about. It doesn't really feel like Karn and Co are on the same page right now on this defense, and maybe it's just because of how frustrating it can be to play against Unity. Maybe you're just timing things wrong, or you're worried about a plant at a specific time. But Unity don't work like that, and they'll punish you if you do something crazy by yourself.
Yeah, and I've actually heard that from quite a few players, in various forms saying, yeah, they're, as you mentioned, they're a very, very hard team to play against mentally. You have to be so ironclad because they'll take advantage of you, they'll shoot your body, they'll text and chat. They do everything they can to get in your head, and they're so good at it because their play style fits it. Their team knows what they're trying to do, and it works. And I will say, it's a very, very hard team. I mean, you've seen that consistently. It feels like any game they go against, they've been able to make it close. They've been able to make it a banger. They do at least have a little bit of hopeful resistance here. Karn and Co. They opt to go once again for only one man in Bakery. A lot of pressure on a Toaster here to really control the entirety of the flow of this. As he's essentially the gatekeeper here. They can take him out. Things can get iffy fast, but Raid finds Vic Bands and
Oh my god,
bit of a TK in the mix.
Yeah. Is right. They just killed Ace. I don't even know if Kiru was able to open up the single wall inside of Bakery, but Hat's kind of found a place where nobody's looking at him. But at some point, Karn and Co are gonna figure out that he's here, and I think that's why they shot at him. Although it doesn't really seem like they're totally aware of it. So this could be a gap that Unity can exploit.
Yeah, and you'll see that exploit being taken, but an immediate trade, as sometimes the greatest thing for Karn and Co is a little bit of trading. Maybe you don't know the pick, but if you know your chemistry, if you know where your players are, you can always find that trade consistently. And Carnage, as well, gets on the board again. He's obviously the IGL, should do a little bit there, but it seems he also learned, maybe as the hardcore player there, don't get too aggressive, as BJ is certainly the mechanical man for this team. Certainly been able to handle it so far, and I will say real quickly, Big Man's on a bit of a weaker start right now. We've seen him have these before and really pick it up, but it has become a bit of a consistency where we'll see him struggle maybe in these first couple of rounds here and really pop off, which it's nice to see him pop off, but it is a little worrying maybe in these early rounds why he can't find himself in those killing positions.
Yeah, I think the strategy this time around for Karn & Co, just because of how weak their hold was towards Bakery and how easily it was for Unity to abuse second floor control, vert control on that Bakery push. That time around, Raid played on third floor, so he didn't play on the second floor vert, but he was there to like be aggressive and disrupt any type of takeover by Bakery, and he did. He got a kill, and then he caused the team kill because Hat was trying to trade. So, and he also killed the Hat killed the ace, so that was kind of like really bad there for Unity in the end. Even though like at some point Karn & Co did back off of their Bakery hold, didn't really matter. You have a 5v3 with man advantage, and you still have a player that's on top floor, so it's not like Unity feel totally comfortable walking in. And if they walk in, you have crossfires to play with. You still had one guy on the opposite side and then one other player on Rice. So if like the Monty started to plant, there was no vert to cover him, so you have two people that can at least try and like power him as he tries to go for an execute. So yeah, it's a good round for Karn & Co to bite back from. It kind of like ties into the point of like aggression and needing to be disruptive in the mid round, and that they were.
Yeah, and I mean, if you go to this point here, if you get the 3-3 half, it's not, obviously you want to 4-2. I think the expectation for any team on Cafe, especially a team like Karn & Co with this big stature, is a 4-2 half. So it may not be the greatest, you know, in terms of halves, but I think the more important thing is if you can get the round here and just pick yourself up, it's what it needs to show. You need to show that you can be able to pick yourself up, pick yourself up after a couple of bad rounds there, and just continue to hang in.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what we get from Karn & Co once they switch over to their attacking half, because attacking for Karn can be quite weak, but you know, Raid has been such a solid bright spot in terms of entries, so sometimes their attacks are quite good too. Raid does get the opening pick that's onto Kiru, that's the ram down. That's a lot of vert potential because, you know, for Unity, their whole focus, for any team, their whole attacking focus for the second floor site is to get top floor control and abuse the vert against the site players.
Yeah, and Carnage as well, the hard support here, the IGL getting in his picks. Zonky sadly finding himself the grave. It's been a nice showing for Carnage, surprisingly. He's not generally a kill-hungry guy or really going too active, but he's been able to find himself in these good positions, and DD as well finds himself continuing to keep the moves up. Apparently, Carnage has become the new great player here. Whenever you need him, apparently Old Reliable still works perfectly fine, and Kool-Aid here is in a pretty dire situation. You need perfection from your sub, and I don't think that's a real expectation, as Raid will finish. He had a pretty wonderful half, and more importantly, a bit of a comeback there in those last couple of rounds. Karn & Co at least save the half and get the 3-3.
Yep, and it'll be interesting to see what they do on their attacks. Now we're gonna get like a whole new ban phase. I know for Karn, and I was kind of surprised that they did this on their defensive hat, that they banned the Dokkaebi when usually you go for execute heavy operators. Dokkaebi can be she can lean towards like being execute heavy because of like how her phone calls affect cameras in the late round. Whenever the attack is trying to go for it, or whenever the attack is trying to go for a plant, you want to use info. You can't use info if Dokkaebi's on the board. Ying can also be available, and Ying was not really used a single time by Unity when she can be quite powerful on Cafe. So maybe I was right because they just didn't see a single Ying. Karn though, they're gonna ban the mirror, so they're copying the same ban that Unity did. Mira is a permaban usually on Cafe anyways, or she sees a high ban rate. And Castle's the follow-up. So I mean, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with these bans. Neither do I see anything wrong with the Unity bans, neither.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Mira is an Instaban, and that's great. It feels like she's obviously still, despite maybe a handful of nerfs over the years, she's still so strong. I mean, just in XGS, she's banned just around, I think that's what, 62% of the time. Last that I checked, she's continuing to find value. It feels like every single round. So I'd argue a pretty important ban there, as you mentioned, Instaban, where you just have to get it out of the way. You have to just realize you're gonna waste the ban on it because it's so strong if you don't.
5 seconds left.
Yeah. You also kind of like leave other operators up, and this is something that
Attackers must locate and
Unity did when they finished their bans, their defensive bans on their attacking half, where they kind of left like Azami up, and Karn and Co were more than willing to abuse the Azami. They were more than willing to abuse Tuberal. They're more than willing to abuse Goyo, who doesn't see a ban usually on Cafe, but maybe sometimes it's nice to see him ban because he can be quite ugly in the late round when teams just run too low on time.
Yeah. In a raid, it continues to give himself the best weapon. I mean, that's kind of a play that we've seen a lot with Karn and Co. Obviously, is you want to enable your best entries there. And this game seems to be no different. You give him the SMG-12 he loved so much on console, and he still has performed exceptionally well in it on PC. Not a big surprise there. And at the end of the day, you have the flashes. You have a really good utility piece on Cafe. I honestly, despite this maybe being a bit of a gun lead, I really do enjoy a Dokuri pick here to clear out what is a likely very aggressive, Unity team at times.
Yeah, it can also be good at like pausing any mid-round aggression too. So like when you're like stacked up on some of these stairs or brown stairs or white stairs, or even like BGL came from white stairs. They got a phone call him, but he doesn't even care. He just kills Raid anyway. That Sudoku be dead. And although there's no cameras like a Maestro, Echo, BPs, anything on site, that's still a good amount of utility to stop any mid-round aggression.
Yeah, I mean, smart play from him, and now Carnage with a chance to find a pick, maybe. Well, we'll see if he knows. I think he tried to pull out the breach charge thinking it was a flash, and finally saved there. BJ will find Carnage, so your IGL and your Habana down, but at least picked up by Toaster, so you keep the flank utility, you keep the important stuff, and then a little bit of, once again, salty banter in the text chat. It wouldn't be a game without one. It feels it. Like Karn and Co, any team they play, love to just use it, even if it's to have fun, even if it's to get in the mental chalk. I feel like it's a staple at this point. More importantly, Karn and Co's a man down here in just a minute left.
Yeah, it just seemed like such a messy mid-round there for Karn and Co. You can't really call it an early round because Karn and Co do take a ton of time to get into the building to set up any map control. And so now, like, with 40 seconds left, they're trying to, like, set up vert, but they don't have any first floor control. And this is the big thing with service and cooking. You need some first floor control, whether you're going for a VIP exec or a bakery exec. And it looks like they're going towards bakery, but there's so much utility here still. Like, Kiru has smoke grenades.
Yeah, they're going to have to find a way to stop the onslaught of utility coming at them. The Ellas as well. Toaster essentially forced to play a do or die here. You have to be perfection for the group, but there's so many angles to watch. They can double swing you. He's going to get it. Kool-Aid finds two there. Himself. Quite a few good picks there. The consistency, as you mentioned, from being an ex-pro league player just a while is showing. And more importantly, I think for Karn and Co, there's a very, very big point to be taken here. And as BJL did mention it, and maybe he meant it as a big negative, as a mental chalk, but he was actually playing a perfect run there. He wasted just around 2 minutes, as he said. You could not play that better from you. Got rid of the Hib, you wasted the time. You did a very, very good third floor roam there, and at the end of the day, I feel like it's a really big spotlight there for Unity in their round.
Yeah, and he just kind of like took advantage of just such a sloppy mid round for Karn and Co. There's nothing wrong with Raid being alone in reading. I know I highlighted how Raid sometimes does play alone by himself, but that's usually on defense. On attack, that's not usually the case. He's there in a cutoff position because he heard the phone calls. I mean, he just got pumped by an M590. Fine, whatever. For, I guess, Deity to die secondly doesn't really make much sense to me because I felt like he kind of had this guy dead to rights, but there was like nobody else from Karn and Co, making an effort to push down White in order to like pin this guy in and kill him before he gets a second one. Like, this is, I don't know. This is what I was kind of talking about earlier. Raid and Didi are the only aggressive players. They're really the only ones willing to make moves. You don't really have that out of the other three. So that's kind of an issue, and it's something that can really affect the attacks of Karn and Co., especially on a map like Cafe, where Unity are more than willing to get aggressive on their defenses.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect point. And that is a big thing, is you have to worry if DD dies, if Raid dies. Are we going to have a functional attack, really, in terms of the pace and timing? In terms of just a real mechanical player that would push the pen, as you mentioned? It could very well be a downfall for Karn and Co. and a big negative heading into round 8. It's one of those things I think you just have to consistently see where does it go from here. Because you could obviously see a lot of plays. I mean, Raid can continue to find himself in good positions, continue to have a great game. What has been a great streak for him, it feels like maybe, despite being relatively new to the PC scene, he's been putting up great numbers, and it feels like on Karn & Co. in XGS, it's been magnified even more.
Yeah, it's also quite impressive during Element 6. We already know the type of player that Raid can be. I kind of want, like, a little bit more consistency, maybe from, like, Zaki, because I think Zaki could kind of be, like, the third quote-unquote star player of this team. He does have a lot of experience in, like, in fragging, and not fragging roles, but he can frag out. And right now in this game, he's only like 2 and 5. I don't really expect Toaster to get a bunch of kills. Neither do I expect Karn, just because, Toaster's more of like an NJR player. He's a backline player. He's not meant to do that. So kind of have to expect more maybe from other people other than Raid. Now, because Raid's dead, you kind of need Zonky to pop off here in this round since he's on this cutoff.
A lot of pressure on the 2 players here. Your last, as you mentioned, your last big superstars here. You want to make that move big. Deity certainly is. He opts for the Sledge Pistol, keeping, it fancy, keeping the new guns rolling. Toaster as well gets rid of Kool-Aid. This sub will go down as he's having himself arguably one of the best games we could ever expect from a sub player. I mean, dude's been going nuts at 7-4. I mean, consistency is key, and he's certainly been putting it up, so you have to really pivot here, maybe. If you're Unity, you really want to maybe try to go aggressive here, see what you can find. And that gap is just 45 seconds left. So much can go wrong if you're not careful.
Oh, and Didi dies to the Vert too. Like, Unity, again, they're just showing moves in this mid round. They're willing to get aggressive on Vert. This was not something that Karn & Co. were willing to do on their attacks. And he gets another. Vic Bands is taking heads off of players that he has no business killing. But Karn & Co., they find themselves in a 2v1.
Took a second there, but it's at least looking good. Vic Band's having a much better round than recent. He's been on a bit of a struggle so far, but this could be a big showout if he can find his way into it. He lurks his way up. There may be unsure, but Zonky looks at the right time, and more importantly, Karn & Co. win that big round there. Win just one more. It's a great round for Zonky. As you mentioned, when he goes off, the team feels more refined, and I mean, it was a pretty well showing of that. Even when Raid died, even when Deity died, maybe. It still could work because Zonky came in there and was performing at that high level.
Yep, and that's exactly what you need from Zonky. 3K around for Karn & Co. And it's like, it's kind of funny because like in the last 3 rounds, Raid has been involved in like the opening, in openings, whether he's dying or whether he's like losing them. In the last 2 rounds, he's lost them. And when he goes down, it kind of feels like the round from there should be over, but like that's what you need from a player like Zonky, is to have like clawback rounds. He's able to maybe trade Raid out when he's the first one to go in. He can find impact kills in late round. He's more of a late round piece, and that's what you bring him on Karn & Co. for. So to see him, well, now be 5 and 5 even KD so far, but also just have a really impactful round like that when Karn & Co. were losing heads on Vert to Big Bands, and they didn't really have a good way to enter sight. That's really good signs for Karn & Co. to tie up the game.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly a group right now. Vic Fans is taking a bit of a backseat to Kool-Aid, the sub of all players. I mean, you did mention he's obviously an ex-pro player. He has a lot of experience, so that reliability could very well be his main reason for, popping off so much in a time like this. But Vic Bands, it's been a little bit worrying for him. I mean, obviously, it's still around the midpoint. It's still 4-4, so he can still, obviously, he can come back and pop off. But, at some point, you got to wonder, is there maybe a more lingering issue, maybe, for the group of Vic Bands?
It could just be, like, a tough game, too, to be honest. Like, some players just aren't feeling it, which could be the case here for Vic Bands. He also had kind of like a rough attacking half where I think in the first 4 or 5 rounds he was like 0 and 4, 0 and 5. So clearly not maybe the impact player for Unity, but that's like the whole point with Unity is the fact that you don't have one single player who's like the star. Everybody in their own right can pop off. Kool-Aid, BJL, and Hat are more than willing to pick up the pace, but you do need more from Kuru and Vic Vance in this close of a game.
Yeah, I mean, just even a little more showing would really, really be that big impact, would be that big change here. And it has a chance, but not going to come as Toaster instead takes it. He's going aggressive for the entry. Maybe not the player expected by any means. They're going to be more of a supporting backline player, as you did previously mention. But he'll go aggressive there. It seems like even when, you know, maybe your raid isn't going to be the main but even when your backline support is going to be the one to find the first pick, it shows a level of consistency where, you know, maybe if things go wrong, maybe even if the player is out of role in a position like that, they can still perform when necessary.
Thing is here for Hat, he's completely stuck in his spot just because of like the CS control that Karn and Co have. So if he does try to like run away, there is a chance that like Hat might be taken off. So he has to either find a quick move to get out of there or get a kill before he backs off. He can't do that.
And Kiru gets the trade as well. BJ, everyone's finding a pick. Seems the madness ensues. And Carnage will find himself something but a trade as well. So maybe not the outcome he wanted, but an even game. Now, a 2v2 with your perfect backline and your perfect entry all coming in hand.
What?
Raid finds one more, leaving Kool-Aid the sub in unbelievably more pressure than he wanted. Now, thrust into a starting position, or thrust into a position to, you know, obviously trying to come up, show big, show the reason why he was so good just a long time ago. But it's another big shot for us, another big chance. Slow slog here. There's raid waits, Toaster waits. It feels like both of them are kind of just waiting for the perfect moment to do something. Finding Toaster will help them. Now you have to go aggressive. Deagle in hand, and instead, finally there after a couple of swings and a little bit of worry, Raid will get a nice 2v1.
And I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't know how much ammo Kool-Aid had in the PX, but yeah, that was kind of like a crazy 1v1 for Raid to win. It was 50-50 to be honest, so like any one of them could have won it, but like, you know, it's crazy that it's crazy that it like looked that convincing for Raid. And to be honest, like, you know, it's another round from Raid where he's finding multi kills and impactful multi kills, because like at least in the 2v2, like the worst case scenario is Karnico tried to plant in a 2v2 and your only cover is Raid while you have BJL wrap around the pillar and Kool-Aid pressure the plant spot. BJL wrapping around the pillar could have killed Raid, but he was already in pillar, so that's maybe a bit of a mistake from BJL to be there when Raid is going to look to take pillar control and look for a gunfight there and find a pick to make it a 2v1. It's a 5-4 scoreline so far for Karn & Co, where this game is so competitive and they're not letting Unity, more importantly, get in their heads.
Yeah, I mean, this has so far been a very, very great scenario. And we couldn't ask for a closer game. We literally could not so far. So hopefully we can see that continue, and maybe cross your fingers in overtime. Let's hope Caster Curse does not curse me once more. For now, we can hope for the long game. We can hope for the long haul. But certainly it seems like Karn and Co have found themselves, and off the back of mostly one player. I mean, Deity and Zonky still have had big rounds occasionally, but there's one man who just continues to stand as that superstar right now for Karn and Co, the man that you're going to look to when you need it most to go big, and Raid certainly has seemed to live up to that expectation.
Yeah, Didi has an interesting KDA. Oh my gosh, sorry. But yeah, like, sorry. I was gonna say, like, there's really no amount of compliments, or there's a non-stop amount of compliments, rather, that you can have for Raid, and it's just his mental fortitude. He's clearly not shaken up by Unity's trash talk. He's not shaken up by maybe how frustrating some of these early kills have maybe been for him, where at least the 2 rounds in a row, he's been the opening pick. He doesn't let that get to him, so that's really good mental fortitude from him. Unity, though, they're going to be extending up on the 3rd floor, and I believe they're in surface and cooking, so this is kind of crazy to see that they're this far upstairs.
Yes, and I will quickly point it out because I really have loved the recent buff to her gadget there. The Thorn actual mines have been pretty insane.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously pretty good now, and I'm glad to see it being brought. I think a little bit more standard-wise. I'm excited to see what that becomes. But for now, Zonky sits himself on the window here. He's looking for a bit of an aggressive run-up or run-down there. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with the pressure. So far, he'll find not all too much as the rest of the real Karn and Co group is getting the verticality done, getting ready for what will be likely a pretty hectic execute.
Yeah, and Kool-Aid's actually the only one upstairs on the third floor. This is actually something that's very common. Usually, you're gonna see him be a late round piece and be disruptive in the mid round while Karn and Co look to do their executes, or even he could start his flank down red stairs. Deity looked towards red stairs 1 second, thinking that it's cleared. He was specifically looking towards bottom red, not top red. So they don't know that there's a player up on the third floor. So he could be somebody who's super, super good for Unity in this late round.
Yeah, and it seems he's just going to keep waiting, keep seeing if he can get even larger returns. I think he knows the longer he waits, the more madness he can cause within the site, more madness he can cause to each other. And really just, try to create a little bit of dismay within the group. But Deity at least finds one. Now we're going to see Kool-Aid be on the second floor. Hasn't quite been found by either side. BJL and Vic Bands find the big one. Zonky and Raid go down, leaving Deity as your main entry, your main superstar to try to clutch. He's trying his best. Kool-Aid gets found. Deity goes nuclear. Somehow leaving BJL in a 3v1, finished off by Toaster. Madness within those last 20 seconds. But Karn and Co still come out on top and get the match point.
No, that was stupid nasty from Deity because Karn and Co had no good way of really entering the site. Their whole plan in the mid round or in the late round was to do a freezer execute. That was going to be really difficult with the smoke grenades and the mute still with the smoke grenades in sight and the mute still playing in VIP. Actually, I think the smoke was in brown bar or on whiskey bar. So yeah, he was going to be quite disruptive on that late round execute there from Karn and Co. But Deity coming down from brown stairs. I mean, Toaster killing Kool-Aid on the flank was maybe a big reason as to why that round doesn't get totally out of control there for Karn and Co, allowing for Deity to not really have to worry about his flank and worry about what's in front of him. He kills the whiskey player and then he flicks on the guy that's coming out of poke check as well. That was an amazing show of aim from Deity. And just a really good impact round as well from Toaster, who killed the flanker that was supposed to mess up that whole thing for Karn and Co.
Sorry, just looked at the chat and saw Andrew. Excuse the laughter. No more 6-7 to think of though. Carnage, please don't do this to us. Oh my god, I'm never escaping it. It's never escaping. Okay, more importantly to the cast. You're seeing a bit of aggression from Matt. Immediately take it out. Apparently there was a plan. I was wrong. He is gone now. Get the casket closed.
Ooh.
All right, everyone's going off. The spawn peak is madness. These windows are apparently a war zone, unlike anything else in the early round. So within everything going on, you find VJL getting himself trying to go ban for ban with Raid there. Now both of them at 11 kills. They're pretty insane overall, and now it's just a bit of a weird slowdown there as you lose your Azami very early. But a line is also impactful, but I think me and you both know that Azami losing that so early is going to be so painful.
Yeah, just because Azami and piano is such a storied subject for Cafe. Obviously you can just create a ton of new angles around the piano itself. You could play around ticket they call it too. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. VGL goes for a jump out. He dies immediately. You still have a top floor presence here. Well, this is the top floor site. So yeah, of course you're going to have a top floor presence. And Unity are still playing quite aggressively for piano, and Karn cannot shut it down.
Huge play from him. Kiru gets just the advantage back in their direction. It's still madness, as apparently there is no shortage of that, but we see another two players alive, same two that we saw when Raid clutched up there. So it seems like maybe these two have that chemistry, the backline and the entry, a perfect duo made in heaven. But now they got one done with the disadvantage. It's not going to be easy, obviously. I think a lot of this is going to be down to the fine details. You got to find some weird gap here and really exploit it.
Yeah, so far there's not really a gap. You have all three players, all three players. You have three players alive versus the two. And I mean, outside of the control that like Unity's gonna give to you in terms of like piano, you don't want Kira to overplay or swipe. That's totally fine. Karn have like no real control in this round. That's a nice shot from Toaster. He takes out big bands, makes this an even 2v2.
That was important there. Getting it back to an even game was absolutely what was necessary. Now Kool-Aid and Kira are two players that have certainly shown their worth. Kool-Aid putting up a performance better than I'd argue sometimes the starting players will. He's going to have to go big, and it seems like they both will. Kool-Aid and Kiru each find their ones, and more importantly, keep this one going as they're just one away from an overtime. All right, it seems that we have a little bit of a tech issue for our co-caster. We'll be good, but at least for a little bit, you might not hear from Shaka. We can pick up the pieces. I might not have the analysis, but I can see what we can do. A crazy run out there. I mean, you have to be unbelievably aggressive. You gotta have some ridiculous level of sanity to try to pull that off. Now you'll see their round, and arguably the most important of the regulation, to get it to an overtime, to continue fighting onwards and not giving Karn the regulation when they wish. Obviously, a little bit better on the record, a little bit better for the points, and this is the battle for that 1 point. You know, this is the battle for the first place here. You win this, it is a huge showing that you are first place. You're the top dog to worry about. And that's gonna continue to be, I think, a big thing to look for. I mean, when a team like this, two superstars, you know pretty much everyone on the group. Vic bands, you have Raid. When they go band for band like this, that's always what we want to see. The superstars trying to get their teams as far as they can, get them as strong as possible at the Swiss stage. And they have a lot to do. It's not going to be an easy one here. I mean, Raid opts to hop onto a bit of a weird pick for him. He's not generally the shield man by most means. He's almost always going to play a little bit more of a, aggressive role, certainly, but he's going to pick up the R4C generally. He's going to pick up the commander. But instead, he'll opt for the blitz shield there, so certainly a little bit more flash utility, a little bit more aggression that can be done, but the weapon is not nearly as good. Okay. Dang, talking my back. I guess we're going to have to continue onwards. But, I mean, so far, they're a very slow entry for Karn and Co. I think playing it safe in a round like this where they have to. If you lose here, it can become a long haul. You have so many rounds that can still come. You want to get this done, preferably in the regulation. Get this done here and now. Save yourself the time. And Vic Bands is going to be found first as Raid goes aggressive. Not a big surprise. We're still going to see him find the entries necessary. He's going to have to continue to go big, no matter in regulation or in overtime if need be. It's now a bit of a readjustment. You lost that big player. They're holding a lot of your space. So BJL is going to pick up that gap play, maybe trying to look for something, but he'll sadly be not in the right position at this point as Raid slowly lurks his way up, slowly looks inwards, as he literally just sits and waits. I think he knows at a minute 30 now, there's so much that can be done. All you got to do is wait for your time, wait for the play, and you could have so much reward too.
Maybe Raid could like smoke off the foot host because that's going to be a real detriment to him as the blitz. And I don't even think they know about Kool-Aid's position under the freezer window. So that's also going to be something that they need to worry about until Kool-Aid stands up and he's going to be aggressive, moves himself over to Rice.
Yeah, madness ensues. Kool-Aid will find Raid at least. You will lose both your entries now, as mentioned before. A lot of pressure on the one player here, the other, I guess, player that really has shown the chance to get aggressive of Zombie. You need him to go big. Bigger than ever here is most important, as the verticality is being done by him. But at some point here, he's going to have to realistically take a horizontal fight. He's not going to have the ability to sit upstairs at a point like this. They're already down a player. They're already pushing their luck. It's going to have to be this hard and aggressive, direct fight. But somehow they both dodge each other. Neither of them knows where they are. A flash will go wide. Somehow it's a perfect case of the wall just barely hides him. But to no one's like, the dude's still hiding. BJL knows there's someone nearby. He knows he's not crazy, but he's entirely wrong about the positioning. Finally, Hat will find one on the Toaster, but BJ will find Carnage, as in a 1v4, you can count your lucky stars, but it ain't coming today. We're going to an overtime. It's a very, I guess, parody round from Unity though.
Yeah. Also, like Karnico barely really made vert above the site to make that any challenging for any of the Unity players playing inside of the service area, which was BJL and Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid only really moved until he wanted to help support against the blitz that was pushing towards service double door. So yeah, that was just kind of like a sloppy like end of round there from Karnico, and it's not something that's really uncommon neither. And I think that kind of just this is like the nastiest thing about like a cafe attack, especially for service and cooking. Unfortunately, you just don't you just don't really get like really pretty executes, or sometimes teams just kind of like run out of ideas of how to like deal with certain players, maybe because they're missing something, whether it be vert up top above like freezer window, or opening the freezer wall fully, or not having anybody being placed on like freezer hash in the end round because everybody's dead and they're all on the first floor. Stuff like that, it can kind of get super duper messy. And for Karnico, it surely did. They didn't really have a good way of entering the site because Unity were so aggressive and they were willing to take gunfights. And I don't think Karnico, as surprising as this sound, playing up against a team like Unity, maybe they just weren't really expecting Unity to be that far forward.
I mean, yeah, that is certainly a point to worry about. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, you expect some level of aggression, but at some point, I think a team like Karn is like, I have the experience. There's no way they're going to get this aggressive. Well, sorry for Unity is a bit of a, I don't know, I call it a anomaly. At times, their aggression feels like, even when it doesn't seem logical, they will go aggressive. And not only will they go aggressive, but really, really, really great plays from it. So it's obviously maybe a bit of a change in terms of how you play against it. You're used to a lot more methodical teams. You've seen a lot of metas. And this team feels like it doesn't matter what meta, it doesn't matter what's going on. They're going to try to find a way to get aggressive, get in your face.
And that can surely catch literally anybody but like Raid and Deity off guard, just because again the rest of the Karnico players outside of Raid and Deity are quite passive. Maybe they don't really expect Unity to do certain things, crazy things, and that's like the whole point of Unity. And maybe to some extent like a JJ and Code team, for example, like they're just super disrespectful and they don't really care if it angers people because that's the whole point. It's to frustrate you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that has certainly been a method of use for the group of Unity in the text chat or in their just pure play style. And now it's a important round as ever, your chance to get a match point. More importantly, you'll want to get this now with your Karnico. You get it on the attack, it makes it a hell of a lot easier on the defense, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a fun one by any means. So far, C4s have gone wide. People have really tried throwing their weight around to see if they can find a pick, but you still aim pickless, heading just about a minute left.
And this is not uncommon for... Oh, he sees his toes. He could, like, shoot at him and down him, maybe? Yeah, I think he just wants to make Vert perfectly above him. No, he doesn't do that. He just shoots directly at him. Oh, I don't know about that. But anyways, either way, we still have full Vert here for Karn & Co. I just wonder where their attack is going to come from. Because of the utility and the operator lineup that they have here, I don't expect them to do a bakery push. I think they're going to go freezer heavy just because of the presence of the Sins gadget. But they're slowly running out of time, and that's something that Kool-Aid on this smoke can abuse. And Kiru and Kochek with his Yokai drone can abuse in the late round when Karn & Co. try to go for their execute.
Could be worrying, as you certainly mentioned, but I think we've seen Karn & Co. work through worse here. But you are certainly going to need some raid aggression. You're going to need some great plays from your great players. And everyone's sort of just gearing up, as it seems like the hatch drop is going to be played. If I'm not mistaken, that does feel like the idea here. Deity will find Hat finally getting a pick on the board. The verticality does find its value. Albeit a little bit late here, as with 15 seconds left. We're working for perfection, but everyone ran past Vic fans. They just opted to go through the smoke to say screw it. The issue is the smoke still finds something here. Kool-Aid goes huge, finds two, stops the plant. Now you enter a possible position where you can look all you want. But there's bodies in the corner. There's the Yokai. More importantly, Unity get a overtime match point.
Yeah, and because of the way that Unity played that, it was a very freezer-heavy exec, so obviously all of their players are going to be towards, like, the white side. They're not going to really be covering the vert that well. And also, they tried to go for a smoke plant to hide themselves away from the Yokai drones. But because they didn't really consider maybe that there was going to be a smoke on the board towards whiskey. That was something that I highlighted. It made that smoke plant impossible because like the lineup that you get specifically from behind the whiskey bar is actually towards like the freezer door where Karn and Co smoked. So because they were getting smoked out, that means that the plant spot has to move somewhere completely new. But because they don't have anybody watching Bert up top, so no, they can't really watch anybody from double door, and also because their freezer single door is smoked off, you really have no vision towards like sight at all. So like that was a free retake from the smoke behind whiskey, when it came to just rushing through double door with the Mossberg and killing the ace planting. Yeah, that was just again like a very late round, super late round situation from Carnico that Unity perfectly closed out, and they made quite difficult for Carnico to be able to really execute the way that they wanted to.
And now they have one more chance to prove it here. One more chance to prove that they can still hang. They can still be worthy of being first place in the. They still have, once again, 2 more possible rounds here. You got to go 2 straight, which is never easy. But at the end of the day, you're seeing DD slowly pick himself back into a rhythm. Raid certainly started off strong, but maybe a couple weak rounds. But it feels like this is the perfect time for it all to line up, everything to come together and really show how dominant these 2 entries can be. Because they're going to need them both to want to win.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think defense has been more comfortable for Karn and Co. than their attacks have been, to be totally honest, especially because like even though like some of the late round situations have gone Karn and Co.'s way, you've had some good clutch moments from Zonky, some good clutch moments from Deity. You remember that 3K that he had on Surface and Cooking, like when or even from Raid when he's been able to survive past the opening pick. You know, outside of like maybe Raid getting the opening pick, there hasn't really been much mid to late round success for Carnico when they have pushed the limit on that clock. So defense is something that they have to totally win here. They have to be checking to their comfort zone.
Yeah, and I mean, Raid already low certainly doesn't help. He will be the one on the bottom floor there. He'll try to make his moves around slowly but surely. I think you'll find him working himself towards those picks. Whether he wins those one-on-ones will be something we'll have to see in just a little bit. Here, but nades and everything else goes wide towards Carnage, as he will be the third prepared to handle a lot of this. One thing is he just continues to keep getting pressure, nades, gun utility. Everyone is coming at him at Mach 10. It's so important that he survives on his toaster, because this is your big goal here. If you can hold this long, you can absolutely win the round here. Absolutely buy you everything you need, and gotta be so careful.
The only thing they have in terms of late round utility, and I'm assuming there's a Goyo pack on the reading room door, is just that. But Karn opens up the round perfectly. That is a kill towards Kira, who was pushing down Stack Saw in order to really push the limits on this roam here. Karn and Co, the fact that Toaster and Karn are surviving this long is crazy. They finally get Karn off of the board. But still, this is crazy, no?
Finally, though, Toaster still comes in. Deity, hack. All the bodies fly, and Raid as well, surprisingly. He'll find himself dead in the 3v2 situation. BJL and Hat have had some beautiful rounds. You're going to need one more here. You're going to need just another big performance. That's the important thing here. He finds the second. He's looking for more now. A chance to go huge if necessary. It's all about playing within the gaps. It seems like he might have had one, but a Fenrir could give away his position here. Now it doesn't matter where you look. There's a body there. The 3 for him. He's looking for the final. Deity is about as low as it can get. Now it's left to 1v1 as both the bodies are just barely alive, but Deity clutches. Karn and Co stay alive, and we're going to max rounds on map 1 of Playday.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm surprised that it even really got that close. Karn and Toaster did a very good job of wasting time on top floor. They didn't give Unity what they wanted, which was an opening pick and a way in. Like Karn played around his spot very perfectly. He killed Kiru first before he could wrap around to try and kill the freezer player, which was Toaster. And Toaster getting a kill before like dying too is kind of crazy. Like the fact that Carnico were able to hold on to map control for that long was kind of crazy, especially when the sharks swim around the water. And I would kind of like to look at this round again just to see what exactly made this so slow for Unity, because from my perspective, Karn only really had an SMG over by Kato. He's not holding long angles. He's not applying pressure over towards CS. Toaster's really the only person who can kind of do that, but he's also pinned in from the bathroom player. So yeah, just a shocking round to see from Unity because it looked like they had the two top floor two top floor players dead to rights, but no, that wasn't the case, and it's excellent time wasting again on a roam from Karn.
10 seconds to go.
Yeah, and it all comes down to one round.
5 seconds.
I mean, we've been blessed. This is almost, it feels like every single game in XGS has been going overtime here. It feels like every single game is a nail biter, and another one continues to be. BJL, been the big player, obviously, for Unity. And he needs to go big more than ever. I mean, you saw Hat go big. They're really trying to keep him in the fight. But DD touched that last round perfectly. He kept his team alive just one more. Now they'll head to the attack there. What happened has been a well-tied for both. I mean, I think we've seen some crazy peaks. We've also seen some big lows here, and I need to see perfection as DD and Ray did step up, but now I need to see him do it once more.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, like, it was like Karn, Toaster, and DD in that last round that stepped up. You know, Ray didn't really have that much of an impact. I think he's been stuck on 13 kills for like the last couple of rounds. So the supporting cast for Karnico, while the kills, the KDA doesn't look that impressive, you've had some really good impact from Toaster the past couple of rounds to keep Karnico like in like the lead at some points, to keep them in the game totally. So like, yeah, I kind of want to give my hats off to them. But they like you mentioned, they kind of have to show up big. Everybody needs to show up big for Karnico if they want that big win. Same applies to Unity.
Yeah, I mean, Vic Van's been a little bit weaker than I think we expected. 4 and 12 isn't really the stat line we're used to him seeing. So we'll see, obviously, if he can pick himself up here in a round so important here. If he can really live up to the moment there, live up to the bright lights. As of right now, we're still going in halfway in here, pickless on both sides. Both of them are getting aggressive, so it's not like they're not trying. It just hasn't quite come, and you're going to see Hiro be one to certainly worry about. He was opting to play the most aggressive angle, falls back just a little more, but Raid continues to keep putting up this pressure. Not to find this pick. I think he knows how important it could be to get something here. He will find it, but not the second. Vic Vans will clutch that one as the bodies go flying. DD gets shots off. He's stuck in between a lot of places here. He has to fall back to play it safe as we stabilize to a 4v4 there.
Yeah, and Raid kind of went by himself. I was fully expecting him to get that kill onto Vic Vans. I thought DD was going to be right behind him as well to maybe get out that trade. And if he does trade out Vic Vans, then at least Hat upstairs by himself. And to be honest, that would have been a 5v2 for Karnico if Raid had backup and somebody to trade him out immediately, because Hat has nowhere to go. He cannot escape the top floor.
Yeah, he's going to need perfection on his end there. Habana just making his little sideline there to do damage. Finished off by Toaster. Your backline player comes in for the important one. Now Vic Van continues to prone. Finds Carnage. Keeps the dream alive at a 3v3. You're praying to just find something special here. So many bodies outside. The Fuser isn't even in your hands right now. You're looking for miracles, and I don't know what you're going to find, but DD's certainly going to try. He drops, can't find Kool-Aid. Madness still ensues with 10 seconds left. I don't know what you can do at this point. Shotgun shot away, the sub finishes, and the storyline era. More importantly, Unity, hang on as that first play.
Yeah, and the clock being a really big issue there for Karnico in the end. I think also a big issue that I had in the late round there for Karnico, which is something that's been very common on their attacking cap, is like the mid to late round has looked incredibly sloppy for their standards. It's the fact that like DD just drops. I don't think he meant to do that, but if he didn't mean to do it, it was probably out of panic due to how low the time was getting, and they needed to kill that laundry player who usually is either a smoke or he has a nitro cell. In that case, it was BJL with the nitro cell as the mute inside of laundry. That would have been a really big stopper for Karnico, who maybe felt like they didn't really have the time to react to a nitro cell kill if somebody's covering, or to a nitro cell pick, if they're having to cover for pillar and shoot out the nitro cell at the same time while waiting for a swing there for Unity. But I think Unity just took perfect advantage of like a strong defense on Cafe, and also just how ugly the mid to late round has looked for Karnico on their attacks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of your room. I mean, getting so close, not quite enough. But we will be back later with a couple more games with you guys in just a little bit.